Hello everyone. I hope you're happy and healthy, safe and sound. Today when I was thinking about the topics on which I could make the video, I had a lot of ideas. Ideas which range from very complex ones to the ones which were extremely simple. So for today's video, I opted for the latter. Reason being, I personally believe that in our lives, it is the small little simple things which create problems for us because at times we are not clear about their meaning. Many times when I move about in my social circle today, I listen to people, and mind it, I listen to people, I do not hear them. I listen to them giving compliments to each other. Compliments like, your communication skills are very good. This makes me wonder whether they realize the meaning of the word communication skills. Yes, you guessed it right. The topic for today's presentation is communication skills.
In this video, the basic points that I'll be covering are meaning of communication skills, components of communication skills, meaning of communication, and characteristics of communication.
I have intentionally selected only 4 points for this video today because I wanted that this video should be very concise and to the point. In days to come, I'll be making more videos on the same topic and I'll be covering the points systematically. So without wasting a lot of time, let us start with the first point.
The first point that I'm going to take up today is the meaning of communication skills. Communication skills refer to the art and technology through which we express ourselves effectively to the other person.
In the definition, there were 2 important words, exchange of ideas and art and technology. I'll be discussing these one by one. Exchange of ideas is very important when we talk about communication skills. Through the skills, we try to exchange the ideas, thoughts, feelings that we have with each other. Art and technology. It refers to 3 things: oral communication, written communication, and non-verbal communication. I'll be talking about these one by one. Oral communication is also known as verbal communication. On majority of the occasions, we communicate with each other by speaking. We express ourselves by speaking a lot. Historically speaking, if we talk about evolution of human race, a lot of ideas were passed on to each other. A lot of ideas were passed from one generation to the other generation verbally. So, oral communication is very important. Next up is written communication. Now, written communication is something which only human beings do. This one skill set is confined only to human species, and we need to master this skill set quite a lot. Why? Because in today's world, business world, we have to draft a lot of things like letters, memos, etc. Again, historically speaking, it is through the written word that we passed on a lot of knowledge to each other, and our cultures evolved because of the mastery of the written word. Third thing, non-verbal communication. Broadly speaking, it can be called body language also. This means that the way we communicate through the use of our body, the way we sit, the way we stand, the way we use our hands, facial expressions, all these things come under body language or non-verbal communication. So art and technology in the definition refer to these 3 things, and it is very important for us to master these art and technology. A fun fact, according to psychologist Albert Mehrabian, in our communication, 55% component is that of body language or non-verbal communication, 38% is pitch and tone, and remaining only 7% is words. Now comes the most important question. What will happen if we master these 3 skill set or art and technology of communication as was referred in the definition? The answer is pretty simple. We'll be able to achieve the basic purpose of communication. We'll be able to exchange our ideas properly and there will be understanding at the receiver's end. If I have to reiterate it in different words, I'll say that intended meaning and realized meaning will be same if we have mastery over oral communication, written communication, and non-verbal communication.
Next up are the components of communication skills. There are four basic components of communication skills, and they are listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Now I'll be talking about components of communication skills. The first one is listening. Listening is extremely important. We need to be good listeners in today's world. Majority of the problems that we face professionally or personally, one of the reasons for it is that we do not want to listen to people. We just want that everyone should listen to us. So listening is very important. The second component is speaking. Of course, we should know how to speak well. We should have mastery over this one particular field because we need to know what we have to say, when, and how. Next up is reading. Again, a very important skill set. If we do not know how to read well, we cannot be successful in today's world. We need to read a lot of documents, we need to interpret a lot of documents, and then we need the ability to take actions on the basis of what we have read. The fourth component, writing. It is the last thing, but certainly not the least. Why? Because we need to draft a lot of stuff in today's world. We need to pass on information to other people. So we need to write messages, notes, memos, letters, etc. There are other fields also in which the written part is very important. You talk about literature, you talk about culture. The written part is extremely important in every sphere. The next important question related to components of communication skills is the basic question of language acquisition. Now, many times this question arises that how do we learn language? How a particular language is acquired by individuals? The answer lies in four components of communication skills. We call them LSRW, or the model of LSRW. What does it mean? It means that every child, when he learns his mother tongue, first of all listens to it. L. Next up, he starts speaking. S. Third stage is reading. He tries to read the written word. R. And finally, he tries to write. That is W. Now, there are some people who raise the question that is it always necessary that speaking will occur before reading? Is there a chance that someone might start reading side by side speaking or even before it? Now, this can happen, but only in some cases. Certainly, it won't happen in the case of a child acquiring a mother tongue. If you are acquiring an additional language and you are an adult, and another assumption that someone who's teaching you the language, he actually reads out loud everything to you. So yes, you might be able to read out stuff side by side speaking, but in 99.9% cases, it will be speaking first of all, and then reading. This order, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, in majority of the cases, it remains the same.
Next, I'm going to define what communication is. The word communication is derived from Latin word communicare or communico, both of which mean to share. Thus, communication is the exchange of thoughts, ideas, information, messages by speech, signal, or writing, which are common to both the parties. It is the process of transmitting information from one person, that is, the sender, to another person, that is, the receiver.
Let us now talk about the definition of the word communication. The definition talks about two basic things, the word origin and the meaning. The word has its root in Latin and is derived from the word communico or communicare, and the meaning of the word is to share. Now, the important question that emerges is, what do we share? We share thoughts, ideas, information, and messages through speech, signal, or writing with the other person. Now let's discuss these things one by one. While listening to me, you can have a thought. The lecture is very good. I need to like it. You can have an idea. Let's subscribe to the channel. Information. COVID-19 virus might be lab generated. Message. Hypothetically speaking, the lockdown will be over in 10 days. So these thoughts, ideas, messages, and informations can be exchanged with the other person. You can share this thought with other people that they need to like the video. You can share this idea with people that they need to subscribe to the channel. You can share this information with people that COVID-19 virus might not be natural. And you can definitely pass on this message to people that lockdown, hypothetically speaking, will be over in 10 days. And you can share all these things with the other person through speech, that is, you can speak, writing, that is, you can write it down and give it to the other person, or through signal. But what is the most important thing here? The most important thing here is that speech, signal, or writing should be common to both the parties. When it comes to the spoken part and the written part, it is pretty clear, pretty obvious. When I speak in a particular language, that language should be common with the other person. Let us suppose I start talking in French here. You do not know French. Exchange of information cannot take place. Same thing goes for the written word. I decide to write in French, you do not know French. Exchange of information cannot take place. But what about the non-verbal component? What about signals? What about gestures? Should they be common to both the parties? Again, the answer is in the affirmative. Even the meaning attached to gestures, postures should be common. If they are not common, there can be total incomprehension of meaning. I'll give you an example. In the Western world or world over, this thumbs up symbol, gesture, what does it stand for? There are a lot of meanings attached to it. Some of them can be well done, thank you. But in certain Middle Eastern tribal parts, showing a thumb to a person means that you've insulted the person. Now let's stretch this example a bit more. Let us suppose someone from our country, our world, goes to this Middle Eastern tribal part. The tribesman there really helps this person. And now this person, our friend, he's very grateful towards that person, the tribesman. He wants to show his gratitude. He does not know the language, so he decides to use the non-verbal means. So what does he do? He shows the thumb to the person. What will be the reaction of the tribesman? He'll naturally be offended. Why? Because he'll believe that he helped this person quite a lot, and instead of thanking him, this person showed him the thumb. What has happened here is that the meaning attached to the symbol, that was different in two different parts of the world. In our part, thumbs up meant, well done, thank you so much. In Middle Eastern tribal part, it meant insulting the person. So the takeaway message is that thoughts, ideas, messages, information, all these things can be exchanged with the other person through speech, signal, or writing, but speech, signal, and writing should be common to both the parties. If these three things are not common, then there will be a difference between the intended meaning and the realized meaning, which can lead to total incomprehension of meaning. Here I'll be introducing two more words so that this entire concept of communication becomes clear to you and easy for you. These two words are sender and receiver. So if I initiate the process of communication, if I start talking to someone, I am the sender. I'm sending the information, and the other person, in this case, you people listening to me at your home, you are receivers. You are receiving the information, you are decoding it, and hopefully you have understood all the points.
Next, I'm going to talk about characteristics and nature of communication. Communication is only possible when there are at least two people, one sender and the other receiver. Communication involves both transfer of information as well as understanding between two or more people. The main purpose of communication is to obtain a response. The flow of communication is circular, that is, the process of communication starts when the sender transmits a message to the receiver and is completed when the receiver sends the feedback to the sender.
Next up, we'll talk about characteristics and nature of communication. Communication is possible if there are minimum of two people. A single person alone cannot communicate. Now you can raise the question, what about intrapersonal communication? Yes, intrapersonal communication is there, but in majority of the cases, up to 99%, when we talk about theory of communication, we deal with interpersonal communication. So, for interpersonal communication, there should be minimum of two people. One will be the sender and the other person will be the receiver. So just assume the situation that you stand in a room and there's no one around you, you start speaking. Since the receiver won't be there, communication is not possible. The second important thing about communication, communication can take place, effective communication can take place if there is transfer of information. But along with it, there should be understanding also. In the absence of understanding, communication fails again. Now there are two things here, transfer of information and understanding of information. Now if I try to communicate with you, I'm transferring information to you. How am I transferring information? I'm using a particular language to communicate. So through this language I'm communicating, I'm transferring a message to you. Now just assume that you do not know English. Will there be understanding? Transfer of information will be there because as sender, I'll be sending that information, I'll be transferring that information to you. But since there won't be any understanding, communication again will fail. So understanding becomes extremely important. And why is understanding important? Because of the third and the fourth points that are going to come next. Understanding is very important because it is only because of understanding that the receiver can give feedback to the sender. In the absence of feedback, communication process fails. We cannot go on communicating for a long time if our receivers do not give us feedback. So feedback is very important in any situation when we want to communicate. Last point related to nature and characteristics of communication. The flow of communication is always circular. Now, what is the meaning of circular? This means that it starts with sender sending or transferring information to the receiver, and it ends when the receiver gives the feedback and sends back the information to the sender. With these things, I wrap up this lecture on communication skills. My advice to you, think a lot, introspect a lot, but make a promise today that you'll communicate everything that you think or feel. The important thing about life is that we are never sure about what might happen next. So if life is so uncertain, there's no point in holding back our thoughts, our feelings. So kindly communicate everything that you feel, that you think, and hopefully your relationship with people, it will improve quite a lot. On this note, thank you so much. Have a great day.